Welcome to our webinar update on maritime cybersecurity threats and mitigation methods from our sponsors EY. Our guest speakers today are Magdalena Wrzosek, Manager of Technology Consulting, Critical and Essential Services, and Jacek Walaszczyk, Senior Manager of Technology Consulting, IoT Security Hub, both from EY. If you have any questions about the topics today, please type them in the Q&A section and we'll get them answered for you at the end of the presentation. Here is our host, Carl Jeffrey from Digital Ship to explain more.
So today we're going to give you an update on maritime shipboard cybersecurity threats, mitigation methods and best practice. And we're going to hear from two cybersecurity experts at consultancy firm EY based in Warsaw. We're going to look first at the threats on shipboard control systems and networks. And secondly, we'll explore what best practice looks like today, building on the European Union's NIS2 framework. So there's still plenty of concern in the shipping industry about whether shipboard control systems can be hacked. But shipping companies aren't the only industries with industrial control systems. So perhaps we can get useful insights from work in other industries which use control systems, such as refineries and factories, into what can and can't be easily hacked or what the sensible mitigation methods are. Also in shipping, we're seeing growing use of Starlink satellite communications. And while everyone is enjoying the fast bandwidth, there's concerns about the increased cybersecurity risks that come with it. And the faster the communications, the easier it is for a hacker. And it ought to be possible to make hacking more difficult with network security measures, just like we use in our offices, but we need to know how to do it. So we're going to hear from Jacek Walaszczyk, who's the Operational Technology and Industrial Control Systems Senior Manager at EY. He's been working in industrial control system design, network architecture and security for 15 years. And then shipping companies in the European Union are regulated by the EU's Network and Information Security, or NIS Directive. So it covers cybersecurity methods, reporting, supervisory methods and enforcement. And version 2, which is known as NIS2, has much broader reach, and it's going to be brought into law by European member states by October 2024. So we're going to hear about what NIS2 means for shipping. And this is going to be relevant even if you don't have shipping operations in the European Union, because it's a good best practice approach. So we're going to hear from Magdalena Wrzosek, who's the Manager of Technology Consulting for NIS for Critical and Essential Services at EY. And she's also worked as an external expert at the European Union Agency for Network and Information Security, ENISA. So we're going to have two presentations of about 15 minutes each. Then we'll take your questions, but you can put your questions in the Q&A box at any time. And I'd like to invite Jacek to start his talk.
Thank you very much, Carl. Let me share my screen. Hopefully you can see it now.
Not yet.
No, it. What about now?
Yep, that's right.
All right. So first of all, why worth to discuss about OT security in the maritime sector? So first of all, 80% of volume of international trade in goods is carried by sea, and this sector, maritime, has some characteristic. First of all, when we first thought about cybersecurity in the maritime sector, is probably about typical IT environment, but big portion of this digital network environments is included in so-called OT environment, operational technology, so systems which are directly involved in operations and processes. So this is first thing. We shouldn't forget about this OT, as very often they are key for operations. The second characteristic is about quite frequently rotation of crews, and therefore it's difficult and challenging to prepare scalable security training and awareness campaign in the sector. Maybe in the port facilities is different, but definitely is something specific for ships and vessels. And when we support our clients in cybersecurity aspect, very important is aspect of assets inventory, asset management, and system owners which take care of these assets. And this is again very unique for maritime, that because of this frequently rotating crew, we actually don't have a dedicated, very often we don't have dedicated system owners who take care not only for maintenance of the systems, but also cybersecurity aspect, including OT environment. Here on the right side, you can see just a couple of examples. Recently, cyber attacks campaign dedicated for maritime sector, which only confirmed that actually this is hot topic and it's worth to discuss and protect this environment. I will start with the most famous, actually, cybersecurity attack, which happened in 2017, dedicated, actually what wasn't dedicated, but Maersk was hit by this ransomware attack. It was not Petya malware, and it wasn't actually typical ransomware attack, but on the end, the cost of this attack was hundreds of millions only for this one company. Only 3 years ago, and we had attack dedicated on port in Houston, and it was initiated in web server, and it was attack dedicated on password management and single sign-on mechanism. Very often, the target is not only our IT environment and typical OT systems, which are responsible for operation, but also safety dedicated systems. And this is an example that in 2 years ago in Texas, we had dedicated attack on LNG facility, and the consequences was actually explosion in this LNG facility. As one of the hypotheses which were defined, that it actually was dedicated attack on safety systems. So the safety systems are also very often target of the cyber attacks. Now, let's go deeper how this one typical cyber attack can look like. Very often we have entry point, and very often this attack dedicated on OT environment started in actually IT infrastructure. So here, one of the most often used technique, phishing attack, when you received email with some attachment, and this attachment, like Word document, Excel, PDF, very often contain macros or embedded scripts. And once we open this file, very often when it's actually dedicated attack, we started this macro, we started the script which installed in the background malicious software. What happened next? So somehow from this IT environment, it need to be transferred into OT network. We have two possibilities. It can be transferred through network, it is connected, or we need to move on some media. Very often it's USB as the very popular media is used, and this is also in this case. So during the operation, the port, someone connected USB port with this infected malware to the system. In this case, this was ECDIS systems, which is responsible for navigation activities on the ship. What is behind it? It looks very industrial, as an industrial computer, but very often behind it is a simple PC very often also obsoleted. I mean here based on Windows XP or even older, with some USB ports on it. So in this case, someone connected this USB stick into this computer, and malware were injected into this environment. If this computer, this ECDIS systems is connected to the network, this malware also can be spread across all the network. In this case, infected only this computer. Crew actually didn't suspect any malicious activities, was actually raised as a technical problem, and it need to be recovered from backup. Consequences was that the ship couldn't continue his journey, and it had to stuck in the port. And consequences, the company lost hundreds of thousands of dollars because of this infection. This is just an example how it's usually start, and example how it's spread across the OT environment. But each of the cases, of course, different, and we have a lot of different scenarios. So what we can call OT in ships and vessels? So we have different types of systems. Of course, we have typical IT network, which allow us to receive emails, to connect with internet, etc. So typical IT components. We have a lot of systems related to communications, radars, GPSs, etc. We have systems which support navigation, AIS, ECDIS, radars, etc. We have loading stability systems, power management system, machinery management systems, and many others. All of them contain OT environment on ships. The backbone of this environment are network. So the most popular protocol and network is based on this NMIA protocol. It's a serial communication, which is not so vulnerable comparison to typical Ethernet and IP network, but in modern ships and vessels, IP network, Ethernet-based networks are more and more popular. And even in the older types of ships and vessels, this INMIA serial communication is transferred to IP-based communication. And to do it, we have very often this kind of converters, which are very often target of our attacks. It means that they have their own vulnerabilities. We can connect to these converters and configure it in that way, which disrupt our communication and processes. So not only the systems, but we need to remember about the network as a key component of this environment. Now, when we list all these typical systems we can meet on vessel ships, we listed here typical vulnerabilities and weaknesses of these systems. As you can see, probably in most of these cases, we can list signal jamming or signal interface, interference, spoofing. The reason is that the communication in OT environment is focused on the reliability. So very often we have the mechanism which allow us to confirm that this message we are sending is received. But it's not designed to actually be robust and to protect us against cybersecurity attacks. So very often it's we don't have confirmation who actually is involved in this communication, who is receiver, who is who send this communication. So not verification of the users of this communication. Therefore, we have a lot of different techniques and weaknesses here. Consequences, just example of them, starting from ship hijacking, destruction of data, theft of valuable data, and there are common across different systems and their vulnerabilities. Vessels and ships are not only facility in maritime, we have also port infrastructure, port facilities, and we have a lot of OT systems also in this environment. We can talk about terminal operation center, automated cargo container tracking systems, any offshore platform system, including autonomous vessels, and many, many others supporting systems where behind it we have a lot of OT components, actuators, sensors, controllers, and many, many others. Now to give you actually understanding what is the structure of this typical attacks and how this look like in time. So still the malware infection has the biggest here presence in terms of cybersecurity, actually cyber attacks techniques. Phishing, but it's changing. And groups like ransomware, DDoS attacks, or more sophisticated, more advanced techniques are more and more popular among attack groups and malicious activities. So this environment, these techniques are changing in time, and we need to understand that the new techniques still evolving and appear new methods, new techniques, and we as a team who protect this environment also need to follow these trends. Now, how we can protect our environment? We will not have time to discuss all the spectrum of different security controls and techniques we have to protect our environment. Let me focus on two key elements. So first of all, we need to protect our network environment, as I mentioned, is treated very often as a backbone, as a key element in our OT environment. And one of the most important techniques is network segmentation. How it works. So network separation is a concept which divide our network on different levels. So in this case, we have corporate level, and on the bottom, if lower we are going, we have more critical systems for our processes. This concept is called defense in depth. So if we have our crown jewels, if we have our critical system, they should be on the bottom level of our hierarchy to have different levels of protections and different security controls to protect our the most important for us assets. And so on the end, you have different controllers, pumps, fans, sensors, and any other actuators which directly control our processes, starting from power to ship operations, navigation, etc. On the higher levels, like supervisors, we have interfaces very often, like SCADA systems, different HMIs. Thanks these systems, operators can run the processes, but the real crown jewel is on the bottom. And the key is also to divide, to group different systems based on their criticality and function on different security zones. The security zones, you can mark it on gray boxes here. And additional layer or important activities is to define different security conduits, so communication channels between these gray boxes, between our zones, and implement different security controls between this in communication between the zones, so on this conduits. As a security controls, I understand a firewall inspection, for instance, so we are able to control this traffic. Another security control is monitoring, but I will touch it in the moment. So here we have example based on statistics. What is the average time needed to identify malicious activities in our network? And it's this is how it looks like comparison to different sector. Transportation is here. We need more than 200 days to average to identify malicious activities on the network, much less days is needed to contain it and mitigate the risk. However, this is still far away from what it should be actually, and a lot of effort still is needed to improve the statistics. And the second security control, security measure I would like to touch is OT monitoring. Once our network is properly designed and built and is segmented, we need to start monitor our network. So we have dedicated solution like industrial intrusion detection systems or EDRs, which allow us to monitor the network, detect any anomalies in the network, and also detect anomalies on our endpoints. Having this information, how does our network look like and what happened in the network, what kind of traffic we have in the network, what kind of anomalies we have in the network, we can start talking about incident response. So what I would like to emphasize here, that technology and the different solution which protect us is not the only element which we need. Very crucial is to build the organization and organized specialist people who will take care of our OT environment and will perform incident response and incident handling process. Once we have incident in the network, which will be discovered by our different systems on ships, on port facilities, it will be gathered in central systems. Someone need to analyze it. Someone need to prioritize it. Someone need to handle and perform all this incident response process to, on the end, protect our key processes we plan to protect. So on the end, we need to build in the organization teams. Very often it's called a SOC team, Security Operations Center. So group of people who analyze the alerts and perform the incident response activities. Now, I will pass voice to Magda, because the incident response process is actually key for this directive. But about this, I will pass to Magda.
Thank you, Jacek, and hello, everyone. Actually, some of the questions already popped on the chat, so I answer it a little bit, but figure out it will be easier to maybe give you the presentation first, and then you will have any follow-up question. We will just focus on that. So the NIS Directive 2 is like the second piece of over European legislation regarding cybersecurity. And what it does is like taking into consideration this sector, which are the most important for the state and the economy and also well-being of the European citizens, and basically says like, in this sector, you need to be extra careful regarding cybersecurity. So one of the sectors is, of course, transport, and subsector is maritime. And on the right hand, you have like all the type of entities which are in scope, which is like transport, generally what transport managing bodies of ports and vehicle traffic services. So the important part is like, according to the NIS2, all these services are essential entities which need to be compliant by the end of this year regarding cybersecurity requirements. And can I have the next slide, Jacek? Yeah, and what will happen if you are not compliant? So basically, in every member state, we have the body which is called like competent authority for cybersecurity, in difference from the member state. Like in Netherlands, for example, this is National Cybersecurity Center. In Germany, this is BSI, right? But basically, idea is the same. Like this body is taking care of cybersecurity of the state in this member state, and they have the ability to check if the companies and entities in the scope of NIS Directive 2 are compliance with all the requirements. So if you are not, I will tell in the moment what kind of requirements are in scope. If you are not, this competent authority can issue warning, bring you instruction what you need to do to be compliant, and also order you to do specific action in specific periods so that the cybersecurity level will be higher. In some cases, it also can tell you that you should inform recipes of your services that something is going wrong regarding cybersecurity. It doesn't matter if it will be IT or OT systems. And also to comply with the recommendation that you will provide. If you will not, there is a possible to have the administration fee, which will be, as you see on the screen, quite huge. So this is kind of a fee you probably know from GDPR regulation, right? The amount of hire will be counting. So it will be 2% of total worldwide annual turnover, or 10 million euros. And additional consequences, if you are not still, after having the penalty paid and after having all the recommendation not complied fully, it's like they temporarily ban you from providing the services on the European Union, which is quite interesting, because when you think on maritime sector as such, this is really like international sector, right? So you have to be compliant not only in one member state, but in a few, which of course regional legislation will be different a little bit. It usually is. And the time for having the legislation in place for member state is October this year. Could I have the next slide? Okay, so right now, let's talk for the basic requirements you need to fulfill to be NIS2 compliance. We already had few questions regarding what I have to do as a basic audit from cybersecurity, things like that. Generally, what NIS Directive 2 is saying is like, you need to have the proper risk management, cybersecurity risk management in place. This is like the backbone of the whole NIS directive. What it says, like, according to the risk management and risk assessment, you should decide what kind of services are the one which are the most important, what are kind of crown jewels for your company. And based on this, put right requirement in place. So Jacek was explaining like the necessity to do network segmentation, for example, right? You will put like the most important services in the different segment of the network to make sure that they are super extra protected when you speak about these systems, right? And on the other hand, when you speak about the notification of the incident and building a security operations center in the organization, these services which are the most important should be like, the incident should be reported immediately regarding that. From our experience working with different organizations in different sectors, the main challenges regarding the NIS2 directive are the same, right? So they are three most important. The first one is, of course, this risk analysis, and to have the right cybersecurity policies in place, but not only have it on paper, but also put them in the whole life cycle of the organization. The second is incident handling and incident reporting and such. There are specific kind of incident you should report according to the NIS Directive 2. I will explain it in a minute on the next slide. And supply chain security, which is like totally new because in the previous NIS Directive 1, we didn't have it. And this is actually based on experience of maritime sector. When NotPetya attack hit Europe in 2017, it wasn't targeted specifically for any sector, right? NotPetya wasn't targeting like maritime sector as such. Maritime sector was hit because of the supply chain, right? And that was the moment the European Union started to figure out how important cybersecurity in supply chain is as such. So the bad news is there is no methodology provided by the European Union regarding supply chain cybersecurity. What they are saying in their directive basically is on the entities in scope, they need to make sure that they have the right cybersecurity level in the supply chain. So for example, that you are doing the proper risk management according or your vendors you have, right? Which are, when you think on the port ecosystem, for example, this is a huge number of all the system. There was also on the chat the question from one of the companies which provide the software regarding like, do we have any certification for the software and any services regarding IT and OT? So what NIS Directive is saying is in these sectors which are in scope, which maritime is, of course, there is a possibility to do the mandatory certification based on so-called cybersecurity European schemes. These schemes have been adopted in 2016 by the other piece of legislation, which is called Cybersecurity Act. Right now, we have the proper certification for the common criteria, but there is also the huge discussion regarding like the certification from sector-specific requirements. And how it will work is like when you will certify your products in one of the member states, you will be able to use it in whole European Union, right? And the challenge will be to have it certified in the laboratory, which is allowed to do it, and to have the certification from one of the member states. So I hope it will answer your question. Can we go to the next slide? Right, I would also like to touch about the reporting obligation, what kind of incident you're supposed to report according to the NIS Directive 2. Jacek already mentioned that one of the measures to put the cyber security in place in the organization is to build security operations center. The good news is like you don't have to build it inside your organization, you can outsource it, but you have to know that the incidents and what kind of incidents you have there. And the challenge regarding the NIS2 directive is like there is specific kind of incidents you're supposed to report, right? So generally when you have like a SOC in place, you have your own like autonomy regarding types of incidents within our organization. The incidents which should be reported according to NIS2 are so-called significant incident. So what is the significant incident? This is the type of incidents which cause or is capable to cause service operational disruption and also financial losses, right? So this is like not very specific when you think regarding like the threshold you should put in place. What we see right now is like member states in different countries try to put the thresholds in place, also sector specific, but the most important part here is like when you speak about the incident in the organization, you have to be able at first to determine what kind of disruption it will put in your organization, and second, speak about this incident in financial losses, right? Which is not very similar because which is not very easy, because when usually we work with the organization, the common knowledge is like SOC has the information of the incident, but the information like what the financial losses this incident could disturb is in other part of the organization, right? So this is like also about putting the right governance structure in place so that this information could be passed from technical team to the teams who are like in charge of business continuity planning, for example. And that the other aspect of the definition of significant incidents is like the ability to affect other natural or legal person, right? Which causing like material and not material damage. This is like when you think in the broader perspective regarding the states, it's about the security of European citizens, right? So if the incident has a possibility to affect people by, for example, not putting the right products in the market because the transport, the maritime transport will be stopped, that will be the incident which is important and significant and needs to be reported. Again, we don't have the specific thresholds yet. This is on member states right now to determine what exactly you should report. But in preparation, you can already started the process of identifying this aspect in your organization. Now, what you need to do with this incident to notify the national CSERT, so the organization who is in charge of collecting the incident from the member state perspective. This should be the CSERT of the country when the incident happens. So even if you are a company from the other country, but you are on the territory of country X, this is the country where you should report the incident, and then you have 72 hours to give more the details about the incident, right? So then you will be asked about the CSERT regarding like the influence of the incident, what could happen, how many people could be affected, things like that. A lot of information you have to collect before you will give it to the national CSERT. And after a month, you are also you will also have to provide the detailed report regarding what happened exactly. There is also the possibility that since the incident could affect a lot of other people and companies, the CSERT and national authority will tell you to make it more public, right? To tell that something is going wrong. This is again not PETIA and the other ransoms which hits Europe lesson learned from European Commission. Okay, can I have the next slide? Right, so this is like the timeline and a little bit history lessons, because actually the first NIS directive was adopted in 2016, and maritime sector also was in scope of this. The challenge is right now you have much more requirements and also much more reporting obligation to the national CSERTs, right? So the deadline for this directive is October this year. And one more important date is like you need to make yourself known for competent authorities in the country. So no one will tell you that you are in the scope of this directive too. You need to do the legal analysis by yourself and tell competent authorities in the countries that you are part of NIS too. So this is like something which you probably know from Germany and Netherlands, but other member states didn't have it so far. Okay, so I think that's cover like more or less the information regarding NIS2 directive. I also saw on the chat the question, is there a specific checklist regarding NIS2 requirement? There is not. We have like a whole part of directive which tells you about the requirement you need to fulfill, but there is no specific checklist as such. What we usually recommend is to use NIST standard and ISO standard regarding cybersecurity, which can help you with the checklist and create the proper checklist regarding NIS2. Okay, I think that's it. Over to you, Karl.
Okay, that's fantastic. So if you want to stop sharing the screen, and I'll invite everyone to open the Q&A box and we'll have a look at some of the questions here. So I think we've answered a lot of these questions already, but I'm just saying for the audience, if you want to click the upvote sign, the questions go to the top so we know what's most interesting. But there's mainly talking about the legal legal issues. An interesting question from Martin Patient. He says, I believe NIS2 only affects companies with 250 plus employees or annual turnover exceeding 5 million euros. Should we do that one quickly? Is that correct? Or?
Yeah, that's right. If you are a small enterprise, you are not in the scope of NIS directive, but, and here is a caveat, the member state could decide but that you are still in scope if you are important enough. So generally this is true, but member state will have some kind of like decision-making power here regarding the implementation process.
Okay. And then, so sort of questions about the compliance obligation and so Mark Langershoff, who has the obligation to comply? Is that the shipping operator? So Mark is from Applied Satellite Technology. Chris Hanney is asking, can he report incidents anonymously? I think this is about companies specifically, but
yeah,
also
generally they are like the national CSIRT know which kind of what company is reporting, because this is like coming from the company, right? But generally when they share this information, because this is like how the whole system in Europe work, for example, when you had the huge incident in maritime sector, it will be like making not know who is like having this incident, but the warning information about it, it will be sent. So the CSIRT will know that you have reported it, but generally no one else should, right?
Okay. And then, so Chris Hanney is asking, what if an incident happens in international waters? And he's also asking about the flag system. So what's the actual scope of European Union for shipping perspective, is it?
Yeah, I think that's actually very interesting question regarding the international waters, because we also like have this exercise with our legal team, and what we came up, it will be up to the state when the ship was registered, right? But this will be, of course, case by case, because it's not like so easy to say like who will be in charge of the incident and where should you report it, right? The one of the interpretation is like you should report it to the country of the nearest port, for example, when you will be.
Oh, okay. So a question from David Edwards, I think he's with Navigator Gas. Will member states identify the companies in scope and contact them to warn them? Or is there any advice? I guess that's the same as a previous question. So you said it's sort of discretionary, that states can choose what they consider to be in scope or isn't, or yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, very good. Okay. We've got a lot of technical questions here.
I can take the next one regarding
then.
OT monitoring as a method to protect OT. There's a question, is how to ensure that these do not void any warranty of any ICS by maritime OEMs. And a very good question.
Can you
and this
explain
is
the acronyms first, because I don't even know what they are.
So OEMs is the producer of manufacturer of these different solutions, right?
An
So
EPP,
if EDR is, and endpoint protection and detection and response. So so EDRs and EPP are the solution which protect our endpoints, so servers, workstations, etc. And OEMs are the simply vendors of the solutions, of different actually solution which we can put in our facility. So fortunately, in last years, OEMs also see as security as a key differentiator between the competition, and they have a lot of partnerships, and now more and more OEMs also has partnership with this different security solutions. So you can see on the market the top vendors, Honeywell, Siemens, Emerson, and many others has recommended EPP, EDRs, or monitoring solutions. Some of these EPP, EDRs has also certificate that they are vendor agnostic and they are secure to implement. So it's not trivial topic, not so obvious, but it requires some more investigation. What kind of solutions are recommended by our OEMs we have in place?
Oh, Joe is from shipping company MYK, by the way. But this one about Starlink. So Amrit is with Wallenius Wilhelmsen, automation engineer. How can high-speed satellites like Starlink process significant cyber threats? Do you have any specific recommendations for using Starlink? Is that so? Starlink is a much higher. Yeah.
Yeah, Starlink is a quite new topic, and yes, it's more and more in use. So the crucial is, of course, encryption, and I would add additional level of protections. For instance, application level authorization. So not only encryption, not only this handshake, the confirmation, which give us confirmation that this package we are sending is received, but also additional security controls like acknowledge who is receiving and who is sending this message. So additional mechanism, application-based mechanism, I would say.
Okay, so if we go to this question from Sven Steiner, I think he's from a shipyard in Germany. I think he's asking about, so page 7, I think there was a slide where you showed all the different possible ways to hack into different systems, if I remember right. So he's saying, is that based on data actually recorded? But I don't think there's enough data to know. I mean, nobody's collecting data about how many GMDSS jamming attacks there have been. Is it? I mean, it's more an assessment of where the risks could be rather than where they've actually been.
Right. There's no full list of the vulnerabilities. Actually, all this system vulnerabilities are collected in CVE's database. So there are databases which collect these vulnerabilities dedicated for different systems. This was just example how weaknesses to actually emphasize that we have valid weaknesses in our systems.
Oh, okay. So looking at Rick Backer's question, beside NIS2, IACS, that's International Association of Class Societies. I don't know if you're involved. He's asking, are you going to give more information about this? So these international shipping regulations, but maybe you don't know about those because you're not. You're control system specialist, not maritime specialist, isn't it?
Sorry, but regarding the OT norm, which was like EOC, like what NIS directive is saying, like you need to have the risk assessment in place, and according to the risk assessment, put the right countermeasures in place, right? So regarding OT system, this is the norms we are using as well. So basically, you need to be able to prove when the public administration will check with you that you did all you could to make sure that cybersecurity is in place, right? It's not about like proving that the incident will never happen. It's about like, okay, I have the risk assessment in place. I put the right countermeasure in place. This is the norm I'm using in my organization to make sure that these systems will be safe. Like that's what I did. And that's what they will check, right? They will not like ask you like why this incident happened, because the incident happens, right? It will be about like what job did you do to make sure that you will as fast as possible make the right order after the incident, for example, right? And you have like the right countermeasure in place before the incidents.
Wow, all the other questions look quite technical. I'm just looking at Carolus Ramsar at the bottom. What does not including the individual vessels operated by these companies in quotes? I don't know where that quote came from. Was that from your slide somewhere? Was it our ships are excluded from risk assessment plans and reporting? I don't know what that question means. Do you know? No.
Yeah.
So Carolus Ramsay is head of maritime policy with the Finnish Ship Owners Association. Maybe I don't know where that quote came from. Okay, should we go to Silver Ran? He's from Congress Maritime. What's the relationship of IEC 62443 in OT systems? Is that?
Yeah, I already answered it. This is
did you? Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh. Maybe I'll ask.
Generally, like every industrial norm you're already using is good, but you have to put it like the right context of NIS directive too.
Oh, so.
Yeah, I can take the question from Sven, technical one. The
Okay.
suggests network segregation between systems like IAMMCS and power management, which are communicating via Modbus TCP. So usually we our approach for network segmentation is risk-based and also segregation of duties. So we try to isolate these systems which has some vulnerabilities, are based on the obsoleted operating systems to actually protect this from health part of the environment. There's one thing, and also we consider who is managing this system. So to give the access to specific systems where people need to have this access, not to whole environment. So this another aspect we usually taking under consideration.
Okay, so Carolus Ramsay is saying this is about Annex 1 of NIS 2. I don't know if that means something to you. So don't know if it's a male or female, is asking what does not including the individual vessels operated by these companies. Do you know? That doesn't mean anything, does it?
I would have to check annex for
Okay.
this. So let
Therefore,
me come back to you, because I need to check annex and probably two other directive to give you the final answer.
okay, we can do it. So Sven Steiner is asking, do you suggest network segregation between systems like power management?
Already answered, Carl.
Oh, have you? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, previously.
There we go. Hold on. So Pete Adset, EDR, that's endpoint detection, I think, should only be installed with original equipment manufacturer approval.
Yeah, I think this is a comment to our previous comment about EDRs, how we can use it.
Wow, there we go. Well, that's all the questions, and we've got 10 minutes left. Yeah, so I get the feeling that shipping companies really want more specific information or guidance, but it's nobody's saying things like you mustn't use USB 6 on ships. I guess the whole point is good. It's quite open. You assess your risks, and you tell people you've assessed your risks, and
exactly. The approach is usually very similar across and common across different sectors. Risk-based approach. So first of all, we need to assess where we are, where is our risk vectors, risk posture, and then we need to decide how we plan to mitigate our risk by implementing different security measures. And yeah, there is already additional layer, a legal one, this directive, which also puts some recommendation on us.
yeah. And the slide I thought was most interesting when you showed the threats that were going up or down, and the one threat that's gone up hugely, I think, there's a removable storage device that's gone up 37%, and unintentional insider breaches, which is probably also linked to removable storage devices. I mean, is this, if shipping companies want to know what to focus on, is this the USB stick?
The USB and removable devices was and still are the biggest attack vector, as they are very simple and still they are present in most of the OT systems. So what we recommend here to do the hardening of these devices. So I mean here by blocking unused services, including unused interfaces. So USB ports are part of it to actually eliminate this attack surface and do not have this open if we really don't need it. So this is one of the approach to address it.
Yeah, but this question of hijacking a ship is always fascinating because you've got this phenomenal risk, but also very small risk. I mean, you had a slide on there. I think you said you can hack into an engine control system. You either need a USB stick, so somebody's got to be on board, or you've got to have a firewall problem, which sounds to me as
yeah, we actually need to understand this attack surface, how the potential attack came from. So this USB port is one of that, right? We have direct enter to our OT environment, but the second actually attack vector is coming through the network, through IT environment, which very often is connected to our OT environment. We have satellite communication when we're talking on vessel and ships. On port facility, we have direct communication, access to internet and external networks. And we need to protect it by proper network segmentation is only one of the security control, but monitoring, endpoint protection, and by adding additional layers of protection according to defense in depth philosophy to protect it on different levels.
There's a question here from Amwith Jaya Kumar from Wallenius Williamson asking about air gaps. So I've heard other cybersecurity experts saying the idea of an air gap is old-fashioned because there'll always be some data that's got to get from one bit to another.
It used to be a gap in between IT and OT environment, but for the last decade there is a strong trend called IT and OT convergence, when we have closer and closer this environment. Business want to use this information from OT, and it's including port and maritime sectors, including ships. So in modern maritime facilities, we don't have this air gap anymore. Very often they are protected by firewalls, but then we have as secure this OT environment as tight our firewall rules are. And honestly speaking, very often we have a lot of gaps in terms of the rules on firewalls. So we cannot feel very protected without proper management of this environment.
Oh, very good. Well, we've got 5 minutes left, Magda. We haven't heard from you for a while. I don't know if there's anything you want to add, any thoughts or closing words, or you haven't mentioned what EY does, but presumably EY offers services to help you audit yourself against NIST too. I guess that's why you're doing this. Is that, do you want to?
Yeah, that's part of it. What I would like to encourage you is to put your legal department on work and make them check exactly how you are in the scope of NIS2 and start preparation, because you don't have a lot of time, right? And the financial penalties are huge, so it's better probably not to pay them.
Probably not to pay the fines, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds very hard to know if you're completely safe or not legally, but I guess maybe from your perspective, it's clearer than once you get into it, is quite clear what's safe and what's not safe legally, is it?
Yeah, it's enough to be safe enough, right? No, not perfectly safe. There is no perfectly safe in this world.
Yeah. It's kind of self-assessment. You sort of show you've looked at the risks and you give people a report saying this is what the risks we think they are and this is what we've done about them. And
Exactly. In some cases, the risk can be accepted by the company on the end, but we need to be smart here, and we'll very often we are not able to address all the findings, all the gaps, but we need to focus on this most critical one, right?
yeah, do you have any final words, Jacek, for shipping companies? I mean, it's basically just take this stuff very seriously, as most companies are, but doesn't sound like you can take it too seriously. So there's more risks all the time, and so got to keep up to date with the changing threat picture. And
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah, if you wanted to give a number one risk, you mentioned the USB stick in the Actis. Is
Ah,
that
the risk, number one risk. Yeah, so USBs and removable maybe hardening. This is I would recommend this, and actually proper network segmentation and monitoring. I would say this too, as proper network segmentation actually protect our network environment and our key systems. But this is let's say the security measure which will give us the biggest effect, but we have to be aware that it will not protect from all the types of attacks, as we have other security measures which actually increase the security maturity in our environment, like endpoint protection, EDRs, asset management, incident management, backup, patching, and many others which we can list here. But I would recommend to start with proper risk management, risk identification, and focus on the most critical ones in the first as a first priority.
Yeah, and it sounds like cybersecurity is achievable with the right focus in your mind. You're not one of these people who say, "Oh, there's all risks and everything's scary." It sounds like it's a manageable, tractable problem. Yeah,
definitely, but it's not cheap. All right, it always requires some effort and then budget for not only to implement all the security controls, but on the end to maintain it as well. So we cannot forget about the people behind it and proper processes. But definitely, it's worth to take this journey, because cybersecurity is always journey. It's not that we will buy some toys, implement it, and we can forget about it. There's always something to improve and to maintain, right? So yeah, I would say that it's always a journey.
yeah, that's fantastic. It's a question I don't think we've got time to answer, but it's more Jan Soller. Why does nobody stop manufacturers using old software in new equipment? You'll have to ask how the shipping industry works with it. Well, that's fantastic. We're at the end of the hour now. So thank you very much, Magdalena and Jacek. And I think that's hugely informative. Lots of very nice comments in the questions. Thank you very much for that. And I shall pass back to Farah for the closing words. Cheers.
As closing words for us, you mean?
Oh, Faraf, yeah.
Ah.
Thank you to our guest speakers, Magdalena Wrzosek and Jacek Walaszczyk from EY, and to all our viewers. We'll be sending you a YouTube video link soon with contact details if you have any further questions. Join us for our next webinar, Developments with Maritime Digital Modelling in Greece, which is on this Thursday, 7th of March. You can book this online at our website. Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Cheers. Bye.
Bye-bye. Cheers.
Thank you.